Hello guys, welcome to this 13th episode of the Built a Web API in ASP.NET Core 3.1 and conserve it using an MVC client also in ASP.NET Core 3.1. I shall be uploading one video every day from Monday to Friday, and this will be a series of multiple number of videos. So for viewing the completed application in action with some of the functionalities, please watch the introduction video in part 1 with link in the description of this video. In my previous episode, I explained the process of creating the customer repository with the initialization of the customer repository class and writing the method to get all customers. In this episode, I shall complete the rest of the methods to walk you through the process of creating the complete set of CRUD operations. In this series of tutorials, all the episodes will be in continuation from the previous ones, so it is highly recommended to be up to date with all the previous episodes before viewing the current one. The essential links and the SQL scripts, wherever relevant and valid, you'll find in the video description. I also request you to view the entire video in all these episodes to get the best out of them. As always, every suggestion and feedback are welcome, and please subscribe and share this channel and click the bell notification icon to get the latest in the uploads. So let's get over to the learning outcomes of what we learned by the end of this lecture. By the end of this lecture, we shall learn how to complete all the rest of the CRUD methods, insert, update, delete with area.net and stored procedures, and complete the get customer by ID method. So let's flip over to Visual Studio now and start coding. So last time I have completed this method, get all customers, and we have seen the execute reader and the SQL command and data reader in action. We have explained about the various things. So for this get customer by ID, I'll still be using the same procedure, SQL data reader and the command object and execute reader. So it will be basically a repeat of the get all customers. The only difference that I need to pass in an ID parameter. This ID parameter needs to be used. Now if you flip back to Visual SQL Server Management Studio, and I have opened this SP select customer by ID, and this is the stored procedure responsible to get the customer by ID. You can see here that this is a select from where clause is there, where this ID is to be supplied by an external parameter, this at ID, which is of type integer. So this is, you have to add this parameter. So how do we do that? So let's flip over to Visual Studio once again, and all I will do, just not to repeat the same stuff again and again, I will just go and copy from here and then change the bits. Just get rid of this statement. Now let's change the bits in this get customer by ID procedure. The first thing that we have to do is, this is just returning a customer as opposed to a list. So I'll initialize a customer object, customers equals new customer. And then keeping this using statement exactly the same, the next thing to change is this new SQL command. Now this was actually SP select customer for getting all the customers. Now this has changed. This will change to select customer by ID. Now after this procedure is over writing, we will inspect this stored procedure by executing actually in the SQL Server Management Studio to verify our result also. All right, so command.command type, that's the same, system.data.command type stored procedure, connection.open, and then SQL data reader and cmd.execute reader. And above this statement, above initializing the SQL data reader and after connection has been opened, I have to make this change to incorporate an external parameter, ID parameter, with this code. So command object dot parameters, there is a parameters type, there's a parameters property, and then add with value. This is the method, and it takes two parameters. First is at ID. Now this at ID, which I'm going to write, this ID, this is a parameter which I will show you in the stored procedure in the SQL Server Management Studio, and this is fed, the value is fed from this ID parameter that is passed to this procedure. And then this line is the same, and while reader.read, so I guess that you have done my last lecture on get all customers. If not, please go through that, where I have explained everything about the SQL data reader. Again, I will repeat in short that the SQL data reader, the instance of the SQL data reader is created by calling the execute reader method on the command object, SQL command object. Okay. And while reader.read means while this returns a boolean true, if there are more rows. So if there are more rows available, what it does, it advances the SQL data reader to the next record. Okay. And this one should be removed. Okay. Because I have to get a customer by ID. Okay. So what happens here is customer.id equals sorry, here actually it should be customer. Okay, so customer.id is the supplied ID to this procedure as a parameter. So customer.id equals the ID, and customer.name is reader, the name parameter of the reader object dot to string, and similarly the customer.address, address parameter dot to string, and everything else is the same except that this line should be got rid of. This was for the get all customers. Okay, and then I need to close the reader and then catch exception. Here I have to make another small change, that it logs to the log file in the Serilog specified path. So get, here it will be get customer by ID to reflect this procedure, name of this procedure. This was the error that was trapped at get customer by ID method, and then customer equals null, and then return customer. And that's all. So let's build this application once again with Ctrl+Shift+B. Now, so the build is all right. So we'll now move on to SQL Server Management Studio to inspect this procedure, to execute this procedure. It will be a good idea to test our stored procedure before actually working with it in the C# Visual Studio. So you can easily test by executing the stored procedure. You can, if you click on execute stored procedure, a UI comes actually, and you have to pass in the parameters, and there you are. So see, all that you have to pass is an ID parameter. And now here I can pass an ID parameter because I know there is a record in the customer table with the ID 13. So I'll pass a value 13 and click on OK to execute the stored procedure. And if everything is all right, see, I have got this ID with this name John Roy Smith and address, telephone, email. So my stored procedure works, and I am able to get a record with that ID. Now let's shift our focus to the inserting a record. So get all customers, add customers. Okay, so add customer. So I'll get rid of this throw new not implemented exception. It's not required. Now just to save time typing, I have copied on my clipboard the entire procedure, completed procedure, and I will start explaining. So here, so I have pasted the procedure for the adding the customer with a customer object supplied as a parameter. Now here it is asking for a potential fix because I have not used system.data. So it is asking for this library to be included. So system.data, it is now added. So system.data. So now the squiggly line is gone. Now here, this is starting is very similar. We are starting a using statement much in the way that we used a SQL connection within a using block in the this one, get all customers. Okay, using SQL connection con equals new SQL connection and passing the connection string that we have done in the previous lecture. So we start with the same way, and then within this try catch exception block, and this is for exception handling, if you know what I mean. I'll put a resource for this try catch block in the description, and this SQL command is again new SQL command, and this is the command, this is the text, and this is the connection string connection. Now in order to differentiate that this is a stored procedure that we are executing rather than an ad hoc SQL command, so we have got the command type property on the SQL command object, which is command type dot stored procedure. And so there are this is a table direct and text also. This is an enum. Okay, so this is an enum system.data.command type. So in order to actually tell the procedure that we are using a stored procedure, and this is a stored procedure, not an ad hoc SQL command, we have to write this line, and then we have to open the connection, and then command dot parameters dot add with value that that I have told in the previous get customer by ID, how to add an external parameter with the which is supplied to the stored procedure into the C# procedure. So that is the command objects parameters property. Okay, and then add with value, and this add with value, one of the overloads takes a parameter name and the object value. So parameter name is name, address, telephone, and email. How did we come to this conclusion? And let's get back to this stored procedure sp insert into customer. Okay, so sp insert into customer, this is sp insert into customer. If you just script the stored procedure, so these are the externally supplied parameters at name, address, at telephone, and at email. So all are in varchar or string type in C#. Okay, and just to make sure that this procedure works, you can again execute this stored procedure by supplying all the parameters yourself. So if you just give it a arbitrary value, say Albert, that, and then telephone, any arbitrary value just to test it, and email, and then click on OK, it should insert this into the return value 0. And let's see the customer table again. So customer table was somewhere here. So if you click on execute again, it should have this XY Albert, the last one, 11XYZ Street. So our insert stored procedure works. All right. Now that we have seen that the first thing, the parameter name has been supplied from this stored procedure as an external parameter. Now the next thing is the value. Okay, so what are the value? So at name value is supplied from this customer object, which is supplied as a parameter to this add customer method, customer.name. So these are the properties of the customer object. So name, address, email, telephone. So these values come from the supplied customer objects properties. Okay. Now, one new thing that we are seeing here is an execute non-query. Previously, we have seen for the data reader, it was, what was that? For the data reader, it was the execute reader to retrieve the values from the reader. But here it is execute non-query. So remember, the insert, update, delete operations, they use execute non-query. And what is this execute non-query? Let's get back to the, so this is, it executes a transact SQL statement against a connection and returns the number of rows affected. It's okay. So number of rows affected, but it also executes the query. In this case is the insert. It is an insert operation. So okay. So add customer is done and over with. So let's get to the update customer. Get rid of this. The only change here is that I don't need to explicitly close the connection because I am using the connection within the using block, and at the end of this using statement, it will automatically close the connection. Okay, so let's do a Control Shift and B to build this application once again. Now the application build succeeded, and in order to build it successfully, I had to again resort back to this throw new not implemented exception pending our completion of this update customer, which we will do now. So I have again copied the update customer on my clipboard, and I will paste it and explain. So update customer has dumped the code from my clipboard. Now here you can see it's almost exactly the same. It's almost the same as I was saying, except the fact that it is asking for ID parameter, because you are updating a record which is already existing and with a particular ID. So ID parameter needs to be supplied. Okay, and other than that, the name of the stored procedure is also different, SP update customer. Now let's flip over to SQL Server Management Studio to see the update procedure in action. So SP update customer. So let's get back to SP update customer. So I will go over here on my stored procedure and execute stored procedure. Again, I just wanted to show you. So ID, let's pass an ID of say 15. I want to update this record 15, and let's have the name be the same, address is the same, and you can pass null value over here. Address be the same, and telephone, let's change that telephone to something else. Okay, so Jack, say 222. Okay, and email was null value. Okay, so here I am passing null value just to quickly show, and this null values will be passed, it will not be recorded. So you will get only the ID, and name is not a good idea to pass a null value. So okay, let's keep it as Jack, and address and telephone as null value, and click on OK. All right, and then let's again see our customer table. Okay, so this is, look at this record. If we execute this, so see, address is null, telephone 2222, telephone has changed, email is null, and name and ID are the same. All right, so I've been able to update the value. And if I had supplied the value of address and email, which you would expect to have been updated properly. So that is the end of this update customer. The only thing I overlooked in this update customer method is I don't need the connection.close anymore. So I'll get rid of this because it is still under the using statement. So as soon as the using block is ended, the connection will automatically close, which I've been stressing again and again. So this is the delete customer method. Okay, so that is executing another SP delete customer stored procedure, and still we are using the using block with a SQL connection object and passing the connection string over, and then creating a SQL command object and passing the stored procedure SP delete customer. And we are opening the connection, and here you don't need to close the connection because we are using a using statement. And because it's a delete operation, so as I told you in the beginning of this lecture, so insert, update and delete all require the call of execute non-query method on the SQL command object to update or delete or insert a record. And the only parameter required to be supplied was ID parameter. And if we look at buildings application, it is not returning anything because it is just deleting a customer, okay, in the database. So Ctrl+Shift+B to build this application again, and the build succeeded. And let's see a delete stored procedure also in action by deleting a customer record. So SP delete customer. Okay, so execute stored procedure. So let's delete this customer with an ID 15. Okay, execute stored procedure. ID 15. Click on OK to execute this stored procedure. Okay, and then where is my customer record? Let's see. Okay, let me get this customer record again by right clicking, select top 1000 rows, and you see the ID with value 15 is gone. It's no more, it's deleted from the table. So that marks the end of all the CRUD methods, in C# that I had to write for completing the customer repository. And in the process, we talked about the execute non-query method, and we completed the get by customer ID method, and understood the execute of the understand the use of the execute non-query method for the data manipulation. Thank you.